This is your communication podcast with Teresa.
Hello, beautiful people. We are back again, and we are going to connect very beautifully to our last topic, which was, of course, to do with media framing and media priming and agenda setting. And we want to come to terms with the concept of news and the kind of meaning it holds for people and how it actually implements itself in society. So, of course, news media, maybe not so much today anymore, but used to be hugely influential in the political sphere. So all the political parties wanted to have publicity. They wanted to have the coverage. They were quite convinced that the news media could change the attitudes of people. You should already be a little bit hesitant when you hear something like that, because we have referred to research studies that have actually proven the opposite, that the news media might not be as successful in changing your political minds. Be that as it may, the political parties and the political players, of course, wanted the news media on their side, and they wanted to use them. And if you think about it, the news media are what connect the citizens to the political parties, because usually we as citizens do not meet these politicians and do not sit around in their offices for an extended time. But let's get back to our idea of news. What is it? Okay? Well, a lot of people philosophize about it and they say, oh, news is what has happened on the day, or news is what is surprising for some people. Well, it's all good and well, but in actual fact, if you're looking around, you will see a lot of different definitions of news depending on the country that you're in, depending in the medium that you're in. For example, TV has a different definition of news than maybe a newspaper publication would have. But yes, this idea of newsworthiness definitely comes in, and one of the famous quotes to do with what is newsworthy has to do with the dog not biting a man but being bitten by a man. The first example is, of course, not news, because it happens all the time, whereas a man biting a dog would be quite sensational. Tuchman offers a definition himself, and he basically says news is a window to the world. So basically, if we are engaging in the news, we should have an idea of what's happening in the world. Wrong. I don't think that's true at all. When last did you read something about the Scandinavian countries, for example, or New Zealand? There are certain countries that are completely absent from international news. I don't know if you ever recognized that, but it's certainly interesting. So is it really a window? I don't think it is, Mr. Tuchman. What it certainly is a frame, as we've already pointed out. The media tell us where our window faces, as in they're setting the agenda so we know which topics are important. Also, the type of window that the news media provide tinge a story in a particular way, as I've pointed out in the last podcast. So basically, our worldview is very much structured, but also very much limited by what the news media offer to us. There are wonderful conversations to be had about what the new media have actually done to the news and to the making of news and to the contribution of people in the news sector. So maybe this is something that you would like to discuss with your lecturer during the collab session. For now, I need you to please remember that news will never represent everything that happens in the world. It is a partial representation of reality. Even the fact that you are going to a particular event to cover it, you will not report on the entire event. You will not showcase the entire event, but certain aspects of it. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. You go to cover the Miss South Africa beauty pageant. If you are writing for GQ, you will probably comment on the hotness of the contestants. If you're working for the Argus, you would basically just point out the who, when, where, why, and how, who were the winners, when did it happen, so basically the facts surrounding the actual event. Whereas if you are working for Sari, let's say, as a magazine that showcases female issues, you would maybe criticize the objectification of the women during the pageant. Can you see? These were all reports on the same event, but they all focused on different aspects of the event and had different readings of the event. News also is always directed at a particular target group, and every single target group has an idea of what they find newsworthy or what kind of reality section they are interested in. So make sure that you are catering toward a target group, or that you're aware that news cater toward target groups. I think what is important for you to understand is that news is not just an account of what happened. The account is negotiated, or the account is made up with certain factors that play a role in the makeup. For example, the reporters and editors, these are people. These are journalistic people who want to maximize the truth, they want to minimize harm, and they want to act independently. However, they are set in a company with a management, and the managers are all about profit. They don't care about maximizing the truth and minimizing harm and acting independently. They just say, sell some news. And then, of course, we have the wider setting, the political setting, or the people who are your competitors. So all of these things will have an impact on how news is being constructed. But that's exactly what it is. It is constructed. It's not just an account, guys. So let's finish off with an actual definition. What is given to us here is a very lengthy definition of news. Let's have a look. It's public accounts. So news are out there. They are not private. Sometimes you have to pay for them. But yes, these should be accounts that citizens and people like you and I should have access to. They are not supposed to be locked in a vault. Selected events. Public accounts of selected events, which brings me back to this idea of agenda setting, of framing, of priming. Of course, the news reporters will practice choice, will practice their critical eye for journalism and for a newsworthy story, and they say this event is more important than another event. When it comes to news, we might write them out, we might broadcast them, we might digitize them and bring them to audience members. So there are very, very different ways of bringing the messages, the news messages across. And hopefully the news messages are actually compiled by professionals. However, in modern day times, where citizen journalism is rife and where you can publish easily on the internet, maybe the news are not made by professionals, and that might have to do with the rise in fake news as well. What else? According to institutional methods, conditions, and limitations, yes, news are written with certain limits to them. And I've just talked about the fact that journalists have certain codes of conduct, they are working for companies, and so on and so forth. News must be worth something. And in today's time, where news outlets are struggling hard and where journalists are being retrenched left, right, and center, definitely the profit motive has become very important. And of course, when you want to make a profit, you usually use the sensational stories over the not so sensational stories. You would maybe dramatize more than you would have if there wasn't a price that could maybe be attached to it at the end of the day. The target group is also subsumed in this particular definition, so please make sure that you have a target audience in mind when you are making the news. And then lastly, news provides readers, listeners, and viewers with an ideological framework in which they orient themselves to others and the community. The idea of news shaping our worldview is captured in this particular statement. I know this is a long definition, but it's certainly worth having a look at, not just for this module, but also for your general understanding of the world.
I hope you enjoyed it, Schnookies. Until next time, bye!